When designing a rig for a remote observatory, make sure that you choose your flat panel display so that when it's in the open position, it cannot be accidentally turned on. The DeepSkyDad OFP2 is a good choice. As seen here, the voltage is off and the panel is in the open position. When I toggle the voltage on, the panel will close. After the panel closes, it serves as a dust cap. And at this point, one can begin to prepare to take darks. Dark frames are used to remove thermal noise and hot pixels. At any given temperature, there will be an energy distribution in a semiconductor. The fraction of electrons with energies greater than the 1.1 eV bandgap of silicon will contribute to the thermal noise. What you see is setting up for a dark frame. I am choosing an exposure time of 10 seconds, which will be the exposure time I'll use for the rest of the night for comet chasing. I then chose 5 frames to help make up my master dark. Now I'm going to look at the master dark file. The next step is to set up the bias frames with the dust cap closed. Bias frames are used to calibrate for electronic read noise. The ASIAIR recommends using the shortest exposure time possible, which is 0.001 second. Use the same gain as you would for the lights. Now, some users recommend a 1 second exposure for a modern Sony sensor like the one used in the ASI 2600MC Pro, and that's an IMX 571. However, the shorter is better. Therefore, I'm setting it to 0.001 second, which is the shortest exposure I can have on this system. I have also set it for 50 frames, which is the maximum I can set it for. Now here I'm going to look at the master bias. I just want to make sure everything looks okay. The next step is to correct for optical issues in the optical train like dust and vignetting, and that requires that I take flat frames. In order to take flat frames, I have to turn on the flat panel. I do that by adjusting the percentage of current to the flat panel. Here I set it for about 54. The ASIAIR allows you to choose auto, and it will adjust itself to get the appropriate exposure time for the flat panel. So here I don't have to do any calculations or legwork. The ASIAIR automatically chooses that. Then I chose the maximum amount of frames to be taken. Now here I checked the master flat, and after looking at it, I decided I'd take a second set of flats. What I'll do is I'll adjust the intensity slightly higher, and I'll see if the flat looks any different. For the most part, when I do this and I check both flats, they look the same. At this point, I've taken dark frames, I've taken flat frames, I've taken bias frames. Now I'm setting up for light frames. And I'm choosing to select the bias frames that I just did, the flat frames that I just completed, and the dark frames that I just completed. Now the remaining task is to open up the dust cap. And in order to do that, I go to the power switch and I toggle it off. Well, first I have to shut down the intensity on the flats. So I take it all the way to the lowest setting and then I toggle off. And as you can see, the dust cap opens. And at this point, I'm ready to do imaging.